The First Bulgarian Empire, Church Slavonic, Romanized, Bulgarisko Tsarist, Bulgarian, was a medieval state that existed in southeastern Europe between the 7th and 11th centuries AD. It was founded in 680 to 681 after part of the Bulgars, led by Asparuh, moved south to the northeastern Balkans. There they secured Byzantine recognition of their right to settle south of the Danube by defeating, possibly with the help of local South Slavic tribes, the Byzantine army led by Constantine IV. During the 9th and 10th century, Bulgaria at the height of its power spread from the Danube bend to the Black Sea and from the Dnieper River to the Adriatic Sea and became an important power in the region, competing with the Byzantine Empire. As the state solidified its position in the Balkans, it entered into a centuries-long interaction, sometimes friendly and sometimes hostile, with the Byzantine Empire. Bulgaria emerged as Byzantium's chief antagonist to its north, resulting in several wars. The two powers also enjoyed periods of peace and alliance, most notably during the Second Arab Siege of Constantinople, where the Bulgarian army broke the siege and destroyed the Arab army, thus preventing an Arab invasion of southeastern Europe. Byzantium had a strong cultural influence on Bulgaria, which also led to the eventual adoption of Christianity in 864. After the disintegration of the Avar Khaganate, the country expanded its territory northwest to the Pannonian Plain. Later the Bulgarians confronted the advance of the Pechenegs and Cumans, and achieved a decisive victory over the Magyars, forcing them to establish themselves permanently in Pannonia. The ruling Bulgars and other non-Slavic tribes in the empire gradually mixed and adopted the prevailing Slavic language, thus gradually forming the Bulgarian nation from the 7th to the 10th century. Since the 10th century, the demonym Bulgarian gained prevalence and became permanent designations for the local population, both in literature and in common parlance. The development of Old Church Slavonic literacy had the effect of preventing the assimilation of the South Slavs into neighboring cultures, while stimulating the formation of a distinct Bulgarian identity. After the adoption of Christianity, Bulgaria became the foremost cultural and spiritual center of Slavic Europe. Its leading cultural position was further consolidated with the adoption of the Glagolitic alphabet, the invention of the early Cyrillic alphabet shortly after in the capital Pre-Slav, and the literature produced in Old Church Slavonic soon began spreading north. Old Church Slavonic became the lingua franca of much of Eastern Europe. In 927, the fully independent Bulgarian Patriarchate was officially recognized. During the late 9th and early 10th centuries, Simeon I achieved a string of victories over the Byzantines. Thereafter, he was recognized with the title of Tsar, Caesar in Slavic, and proceeded to expand the state to its greatest extent. After the annihilation of the Byzantine army in the Battle of Anchialus in 917, the Bulgarians laid siege to Constantinople in 923 and 924. The siege failed, however, and the Bulgars were forced to retreat. The Bulgarians suffered a brutal invasion by Sviatoslav Iadorevich, the Grand Prince of the Kievan Rus between 967 and 969, that saw the empire vassalized to the Russian. Sviatoslav was killed in 972, however, seeing the empire able to briefly recover, but was unable to reclaim lost territories in Thrace, Romania, and southern Macedonia. Their old rivals, the Byzantines, eventually recovered, and in 1014, under Basil II the Bulgar Slayer, a crushing defeat was inflicted on the Bulgarians at the Battle of Kleidion. Basil famously ordered that every 100 of the captured 15,000 Bulgarian prisoners be blinded, with the 100th soldier spared one eye to guide the rest back home, forcing their communities to care for them for the rest of their lives. By 1018, the last Bulgarian strongholds had surrendered to the Byzantine Empire, and the First Bulgarian Empire had ceased to exist. It was succeeded by the Second Bulgarian Empire in 1185. The First Bulgarian Empire became known simply as Bulgaria, 12, since its recognition by the Byzantine Empire in 681. Some historians use the terms Danube Bulgaria, 13, First Bulgarian State, 14, 15, or First Bulgarian Tsardom, Empire. Between 681 and 864 the country is also called by modern historians as the Bulgarian Khanate, 16, or the Bulgar Khaganate, 17, from the Turkic title of Khan/Khagan borne by its rulers. It is often further specified as the Danube-Bulgarian Khanate, or Danube-Bulgar Khanate, in order to differentiate it from Volga Bulgaria, which emerged from another Bulgar group. From the country's Christianization in 864 and the assumption of the imperial title by its rulers in 913, the country is also referred to as the Principality of Bulgaria. In English-language sources, the country is often known as the Bulgarian Empire. The Balkans during the early migration period. Parts of the eastern Balkan peninsula were in antiquity inhabited by the Thracians, who were a group of Indo-European tribes. The whole region as far north as the Danube River was gradually incorporated into the Roman Empire by the 1st century AD. The decline of the Roman Empire after the 3rd century AD and the continuous invasions of Goths and Huns left much of the region devastated, depopulated, and in economic decline by the 5th century. The surviving eastern half of the Roman Empire, called by later historians the Byzantine Empire, could not exercise effective control in these territories other than in the coastal areas and certain cities in the interior. Nonetheless, it never relinquished the claim to the whole region up to the Danube. A series of administrative, legislative, military and economic reforms somewhat improved the situation, but despite these reforms, disorder continued in much of the Balkans. The reign of Emperor Justinian I, r. 527–565, saw temporary recovery of control and reconstruction of a number of fortresses, but after his death the empire was unable to face the threat of the Slavs due to the significant reduction of revenue and manpower. The Slavs, of Indo-European origin, were first mentioned in written sources to inhabit the territories to the north of the Danube in the 5th century AD, but most historians agree that they had arrived earlier. The group of Slavs that came to be known as the South Slavs was divided into Ontes and Sklavini, who spoke the same language. The Slavic incursions in the Balkans increased during the second half of Justinian I's reign, and while these were initially pillaging raids, large-scale settlement began in the 570s and 580s, 27, 28, 29. This migration is associated with the arrival of the Avars, who settled in the plains of Pannonia between the rivers Danube and Tisa in the 560s, subjugating various Bulgar and Slavic tribes in the process. Consumed in bitter wars with the Persian Sasanian Empire in the east, the Byzantines had few resources with which to confront the Slavs. The Slavs came in large numbers, and the lack of political organization made it very difficult to stop them because there was no political leader to defeat in battle and thereby force their retreat. 31. As the wars with Persia persisted, the 610s and 620s saw a new and even larger migration wave, with the Slavs penetrating further south into the Balkans, reaching Thessaly, Thrace and Peloponnese, and raiding some islands in the Aegean Sea. 33. The Byzantines held out in Salonika and a number of coastal towns, but beyond these areas the imperial authority in the Balkans disappeared. The Bulgars were Turkic semi-nomadic warrior tribes that flourished in the Pontic, Caspian steppe and the Volga region during the 7th century. They became known as nomadic equestrians in the Volga-Ural region, but some researchers say that their ethnic roots can be traced to Central Asia. They spoke a form of Turkic as their main language. 35. The Bulgars included the tribes of Onagurs, Udagurs and Kutradurs, among others. The first clear mention of the Bulgars in written sources dates from 480, when they served as the allies of the Byzantine Emperor Zeno, r. 474–491, against the Ostrogoths, although an obscure reference to Zizi ex quo Vulgars, with Zizi being an offspring of biblical Shem, son of Noah, is in the chronography of 354, 39, 40. In the 490s the Kutradurs had moved west of the Black Sea, while the Udagurs inhabited the steppes to the east of them. In the first half of the 6th century, the Bulgars occasionally raided the Byzantine Empire, but in the second half of the century the Kutradurs were subjugated by the Avar Khaganate and the Udagurs came under the rule of the Western Turkic Khaganate. 41, 42. As the power of the Western Turks faded in the 600s, the Avars reasserted their domination over the Bulgars. Between 630 and 635 Khan Kubrat of the Dulo clan managed to unite the main Bulgar tribes and to declare independence from the Avars, creating a powerful confederation called Old Great Bulgaria, also known as Patria Onoguria, between the Black Sea, the Sea of Azov and the Caucasus. Kubrat, who was baptized in Constantinople in 619, concluded an alliance with the Byzantine Emperor Heraclius, r. 610–641, and the two countries remained in good relations until Kubrat's death between 650 and 665. Kubrat fought with the Khazars in the east, but after his demise Old Great Bulgaria disintegrated under strong Khazar pressure in 668, and his 5 sons parted with their followers. The eldest Babayan remained in his homeland as Kubrat's successor and eventually became a Khazar vassal. The second brother Kotrag migrated to the Middle Volga region and founded Volga Bulgaria. The third brother Asparuh led his people west to the lower Danube. The fourth one, Kubur, initially settled in Pannonia under Avar's suzerainty but revolted and moved to the region of Macedonia, while the fifth brother Alsek settled in central Italy. Establishment and consolidation. Zones of control by Slavic tribes and Bulgars in the late 7th century. Zones of control by Slavic tribes and Bulgars in the late 7th century. The Bulgars of Asparuh moved westwards to what is now Bessarabia, subdued the territories to the north of the Danube in modern Romania, and established themselves in the Danube Delta. In the 670s they crossed the Danube into Scythia Minor, nominally a Byzantine province, whose steppe grasslands and pastures were important for the large herd stocks of the Bulgars in addition to the grazing grounds to the west of the Dniester River already under their control. In 680 the Byzantine Emperor Constantine IV, r. 668–685, having recently defeated the Arabs, led an expedition at the head of a huge army and fleet to drive off the Bulgars but suffered a disastrous defeat at the hands of Asparuh at Onglos, a swampy region in or around the Danube Delta where the Bulgars had set a fortified camp. The Bulgars advanced south, crossed the Balkan mountains and invaded Thrace. In 681, the Byzantines were compelled to sign a humiliating peace treaty, forcing them to acknowledge Bulgaria as an independent state, to cede the territories to the north of the Balkan mountains and to pay an annual tribute. In his Universal Chronicle the Western European author Sigebert of Gembloux remarked that the Bulgarian state was established in 680. This was the first state that the empire recognized in the Balkans and the first time it legally surrendered claims to part of its Balkan dominions. The Byzantine chronicler Theophanes the Confessor wrote of the treaty. The emperor, Constantine IV, signed peace with them, the Bulgars, and agreed to pay them tribute for shame of the Romans and for our many sins. For it was wondrous for far-away and close peoples to hear that he, who made everyone pay him tribute, to the east and to the west, to the north and to the south, had been defeated by these unclean and newly emerged people. Southeast Europe about 680 AD. The relations between the Bulgars and the local Slavs is a matter of debate depending on the interpretation of the Byzantine sources. Vasil Zlatarsky asserts that they concluded a treaty, but most historians agree that they were subjugated. The Bulgars were superior organizationally and militarily and came to politically dominate the new state, but there was cooperation between them and the Slavs for the protection of the country. The Slavs were allowed to retain their chiefs, to abide to their customs, and in return they were to pay tribute in kind and to provide foot soldiers for the army. The 7 Slavic tribes were relocated to the west to protect the frontier with the Avar Khaganate, while the Sevari were resettled in the eastern Balkan mountains to guard the passes to the Byzantine Empire. The number of Asparuh's Bulgars is difficult to estimate. Vasil Zlatarsky and John van Antwerp Fine Jr. suggest that they were not particularly numerous, numbering some 10,000, while Stephen Runciman considers that the tribe must have been of considerable dimensions. The Bulgars settled mainly in the northeast, establishing the capital at Pliska, which was initially a colossal encampment of 23 square kilometers protected with earthen ramparts. A golden jug. Part of the Pliska fortress. To the northeast the war with the Khazars persisted and in 700 Khan Asparuh perished in battle with them. Despite this setback the consolidation of the country continued under Asparuh's successor, Khan Tervel, r. 700–721. In 705 he assisted the deposed Byzantine Emperor Justinian II in regaining his throne in return for the Zagori region of northern Thrace, the first expansion of Bulgaria to the south of the Balkan Mountains. In addition Tervel obtained the title Caesar and, having been enthroned alongside the emperor, received the obeisance of the citizenry of Constantinople and numerous gifts. However, 3 years later, Justinian tried to regain the ceded territory by force, but his army was defeated at Anchialus. Skirmishes continued until 716 when Khan Tervel signed an important agreement with Byzantium that defined the borders and the Byzantine tribute, regulated trade relations and provided for the exchange of prisoners and fugitives. When the Arabs laid siege to Constantinople in 717 to 718, Tervel dispatched his army to help the besieged city. In a decisive battle before the walls of Constantinople, the Bulgarians slaughtered between 22,000 and 30,000 Arabs, forcing them to abandon the undertaking. Most historians primarily attribute the Byzantine-Bulgarian victory with stopping the Arab offensives against Europe. Internal instability and struggle for survival. With the demise of Khan Sevar, r. 738 to 753, the ruling Dulo clan died out and the Khanate fell into a long political crisis during which the young country was on the verge of destruction. In just 15 years 7 Khans reigned, and all of them were murdered. The only surviving sources of this period are Byzantine and present only the Byzantine point of view of the ensuing political turmoil in Bulgaria. They describe two factions struggling for power, one that sought peaceful relations with the empire, which was dominant until 755, and one that favored war. These sources present the relations with the Byzantine Empire as the main issue in this internal struggle and do not mention the other reasons, which could have been more important for the Bulgarian elite. It is likely that the relationship between the politically dominant Bulgars and the more numerous Slavs was the main issue behind the struggle, but there is no evidence about the aims of the rival factions. Zlatarsky speculates that the old Bulgar military aristocracy was leaning towards war while other Bulgars supported by the majority of the Slavs were inclined for peace with Byzantium. The internal instability was used by the soldier emperor Constantine V. r. 741 to 775, who launched 9 major campaigns aiming to eliminate Bulgaria. Having contained the Arab threat during the first part of his reign, Constantine V was able to concentrate his forces on Bulgaria after 755. He defeated the Bulgarians at Marseilles in 756, Anchialus in 763 and Berzicia in 774, but lost the Battle of the Rishki Pass in 759 in addition to hundreds of ships lost to storms in the Black Sea. The Byzantine military successes further exacerbated the crisis in Bulgaria, but also rallied together many different factions to resist the Byzantines, as shown at the Council of 766 when the nobility and the armed people denounced Khan Sabin with the words, "Thanks to you, the Romans will enslave Bulgaria." In 774 Khan Telerik, r. 768 to 777, tricked Constantine V into revealing his spies at the Bulgarian court in Pliska and had them all executed. The next year Constantine V died during a retaliatory campaign against Bulgaria. Despite being able to defeat the Bulgarians several times, the Byzantines were able neither to conquer Bulgaria, nor to impose their suzerainty and a lasting peace, which is a testimony to the resilience, fighting skills and ideological coherence of the Bulgarian state. The devastation brought to the country by the 9 campaigns of Constantine V firmly rallied the Slavs behind the Bulgars and greatly increased the dislike of the Byzantines, turning Bulgaria into a hostile neighbor. The hostilities continued until 792 when Khan Kardam, r. 777 to 803, achieved an important victory in the Battle of Marseilles, forcing the Byzantines once again to pay tribute to the Khans. As a result of the victory, the crisis was finally overcome, and Bulgaria entered the new century stable, stronger, and consolidated. Territorial expansion. Territorial expansion during the reign of Krum. During the reign of Krum, r. 803 to 814, Bulgaria doubled in size and expanded to the south, west and north, occupying the vast lands along the Middle Danube and Transylvania, becoming European medieval great power during the 9th and 10th century along with the Byzantine and Frankish empires. Between 804 and 806 the Bulgarian armies thoroughly eliminated the Avar Khaganate, which had suffered a crippling blow by the Franks in 796, and a border with the Frankish Empire was established along the Middle Danube or Tisa. prompted by the Byzantine moves to consolidate their hold on the Slavs in Macedonia and northern Greece, and in response to a Byzantine raid against the country, the Bulgarians confronted the Byzantine Empire. In 808, they raided the valley of the Struma River, defeating a Byzantine army, and in 809 captured the important city of Serdica, modern Sofia. A page of a medieval manuscript. Khan Krum defeats the Byzantine Emperor Nicephorus I in the Battle of the Varbitsa Pass, Manas's Chronicle. A page of a medieval manuscript. Khan Krum feasts with the skull cup of Nicephorus after the victory at the Varbitsa Pass, Manas's Chronicle. In 811 the Byzantine Emperor Nicephorus I launched a massive offensive against Bulgaria and seized, plundered and burned down the capital Pliska, but on the way back the Byzantine army was decisively defeated in the Battle of the Varbitsa Pass. Nicephorus I himself was slain along with most of his troops, and his skull was lined with silver and used as a drinking cup. Krum took the initiative and in 812 moved the war towards Thrace, capturing the key Black Sea port of Mesembria and defeating the Byzantines once more at Versinikia in 813 before proposing a generous peace settlement. However, during the negotiations the Byzantines attempted to assassinate Krum. In response, the Bulgarians pillaged eastern Thrace and seized the important city of Adrianople, resettling its 10,000 inhabitants in Bulgaria across the Danube. Krum made extensive preparations to capture Constantinople. 5,000 iron-plated wagons were built to carry the siege equipment. The Byzantines even pleaded for help from the Frankish Emperor Louis the Pious. Due to the sudden death of Krum on April 14, 814, however, the campaign was never launched. Khan Krum implemented legal reforms and issued the first known written law code of Bulgaria that established equal rules for all peoples living within the country's boundaries, intending to reduce poverty and to strengthen the social ties in his vastly enlarged state. Krum's successor Khan Omertag, R. 814–831, concluded a 30-year peace treaty with the Byzantines establishing the border along the Irkesha Trench between Debeltos on the Black Sea and the valley of the Maritsa River at Kalujarovo, thus allowing both countries to restore their economies and finance after the bloody conflicts in the first decade of the century. To the west the Bulgarians were in control of Belgrade, whose modern name was first known as Alba Bulgarica, by the 820s, and the northwestern boundaries with the Frankish Empire were firmly settled along the middle Danube by 827. To the northeast Omertag fought the Khazars along the Dnieper River, which was the easternmost limit of Bulgaria. Extensive building was undertaken in the capital Pliska, including the construction of a magnificent palace, pagan temples, ruler's residence, fortress, citadel, water main, and bath, mainly from stone and brick. In 814 Omertag began the persecution of Christians, in particular against the Byzantine prisoners of war settled north of the Danube. Bulgaria under Presian. The expansion to the south and southwest continued with Omertag's successors under the guidance of the capable Khavan, First Minister, Ispul. During the short reign of Khan Malamir, R. 831–836, the important city of Philippopolis, Plovdiv, was incorporated into the country. Under Khan Presian, R. 836–852, the Bulgarians took most of Macedonia, and the borders of the country reached the Adriatic Sea near Valona and Aegean Sea. Byzantine historians do not mention any resistance against the Bulgarian expansion in Macedonia, leading to the conclusion that the expansion was largely peaceful. With this, Bulgaria had become the dominant power in the Balkans. The advance further west was blocked by the development of a new Slavic state under Byzantine patronage, the Principality of Serbia. Between 839 and 842 the Bulgarians waged war on the Serbs but did not make any progress. Historian Mark Whittow asserts that the claim for a Serb victory in that war in the Administrando Imperio was wishful Byzantine thinking, but notes that any Serb submission to the Bulgarians went no further than the payment of tribute. The reign of Boris I, R. 852–889, began with numerous setbacks. For 10 years the country fought against the Byzantine Empire, Eastern Francia, Great Moravia, the Croats and the Serbs, forming several unsuccessful alliances and changing sides. Around August 863 there was a period of 40 days of earthquakes and there was a lean harvest, which caused famine throughout the country. to cap it all, there was an incursion of locusts. Yet, despite all the military setbacks and natural disasters, the skillful diplomacy of Boris I prevented any territorial losses and kept the realm intact. In this complex international situation, Christianity had become attractive as a religion by the mid-9th century because it provided better opportunities for forging reliable alliances and diplomatic ties. Taking this into account, as well as a variety of internal factors, Boris I converted to Christianity in 864, assuming the title Knyaz, Prince. Taking advantage of the struggle between the papacy in Rome and the ecumenical patriarchate of Constantinople, Boris I brilliantly maneuvered to assert the independence of the newly established Bulgarian Church, 104, to check the possibility of Byzantine interference in the internal matters of Bulgaria. He sponsored the disciples of the brothers Cyril and Methodius to create literature in Old Bulgarian language. Boris I dealt ruthlessly with the opposition to the Christianization of Bulgaria, crushing a revolt of the nobility in 866 and overthrowing his own son Vladimir, r. 889–893, after he attempted to restore the traditional religion. In 893 he convened the Council of Preslav, where it was decided that the capital of Bulgaria was to be moved from Pliska to Preslav, the Byzantine clergy was to be banished from the country and replaced with Bulgarian clerics, and Old Bulgarian language was to replace the Greek in liturgy. Bulgaria was to become the principal threat to the stability and security of the Byzantine Empire in the 10th century. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the rich and fascinating history of the First Bulgarian Empire. We hope you enjoyed learning about the significant events, influential leaders, and cultural advancements that shaped this remarkable period. If you found this video informative and engaging, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to Historical for more captivating content. We release a new video every day, exploring different eras, civilizations, and pivotal moments in history. Hit the bell icon to stay updated with our latest uploads. Your support helps us continue bringing history to life. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.